We are back with Nikki, who you would know from my shrine videos, or our shrine videos, I would say, um, which we got a lot of good feedback from, and this will be it'll be interesting to see if
Mm,
anyone else picks anything else up here.
yeah.
So I guess the reason we're doing this is, I mean, you've been doing your own research constantly, haven't you? And that it's kind of reached a bit of a tipping point where we thought we better do a video because there's a lot of interesting stuff coming up, particularly around Australia. And I think it was probably the Taylor Swift thing that maybe even triggered us into doing this. But how you been anyway? Good.
Yeah, good. Good. Pretty good. Keeping life's good. Can't complain.
Now,
What
have
about
you
you?
got any slides for us today? Like we
No, I haven't. There's not a lot of pictures that we need. If you want to, you could probably chuck some in, or I can just link some into the comments or something. There's not a lot that we need to add in, but there's a couple that people need to see.
I just
So,
I got a couple of things that I've got saved that we
yeah.
can
Well, that
share.
might be those because there's not a lot otherwise. Just a
Yeah.
couple that you got to see. It's, I don't think anyone knows about them.
So where do we? I mean, where do we start? We obviously we started going. You started going down this rabbit hole of this shrine. Um, the importance of Melbourne, and then I think I guess like what triggered me, but I mean you can share what you want, was this kind of like passing the baton from America to Australia, and you sent me this crazy clip. I don't know how it says my internet's unstable. Can you hear me all right?
Yep. Seems about right.
All right, tell me if it cuts out and I'll move spot. Um, yeah, you sent me this clip. I don't even know how you found it. So the NRL is
Oh, yeah.
they just did it yesterday, didn't they? So they've gone over to Vegas. They call it the Australian invasion because they got that, and they got Tim Zoo over there and another fight as well. And um, they called the mission Project Apollo.
Yeah.
The Fox League team have hit the ground running in Las Vegas ahead of the 2024 season opener doubleheader. Our NRL reporter Cody Kay is on the glitter strip and had a look behind the scenes as Fox League, with the help of Fox Sports US, utilised the same set from this year's Super Bowl.
There's been so much work gone into it. What are your thoughts?
All I can think of is Project Apollo. All those in the deep, dark moments of COVID when Peter and Andrew said, Project Apollo, we're going, Sort of got to go, how the hell did this happen?
Yeah.
And it's part of that, I think, fantastic energy that the NRL has. They think forward, they're all about the future.
They're all about the future. All I can think of is Project Apollo, all those in the deep, dark moments of COVID when Peter and Andrew said, Project Apollo, we're going.
And all
They
that.
announced it. They announced on the 1st of March. That's the official new year of 2024. It's the 1st of March. That's the day they announced it, Project Apollo.
So do you want to go into that? Let's talk about Apollo first, and then we can shift from there. But yeah, they've called so they've called it Project Apollo, and I just quick Googled Project Apollo, and the Apollo missions, the
Yeah.
space missions, were also called Project Apollo. And then we also know from like Jason's decoding that Apollo was the physician. So I guess I mean we look at like the start of COVID and when that all started. There was kind of this celebrity ritual around it with the Grammys, the death of Kobe Bryant, and then the big fire concerts that happen in Australia. And it almost seems to me, um, not going into the second seal, but is it even a closing of the first seal that they're bringing Apollo? They're saying they're bringing Apollo back to Australia, like the physician, right?
Yeah.
And then I put up this. I might even share it actually. Hang on. I don't know if people remember this one. Can you see this?
Yep.
Yeah, this was quite a while ago, but this was like going into that whole theory that Putin went in and got these biolabs, but it came out through these documents says down here, Ministry of Health, Infectious Disease Reference Laboratory, Australian Doherty Institute, which is based in Melbourne. right? So there's kind of that Apollo reference, the physician to. Anyway, I thought I'd just add that in.
Yeah.
So where do you want to go?
So probably have to jump back a bit to that light show that
Okay,
happened
let's.
last, August, September, because there was a couple of pictures that we missed. And I think this probably needs to be a thumbnail, is that one that looks like a portal.
I'm just going to show you one because I found this morning. So I went on, it was called the Now Never Light Show.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the one we did, I think, in the third shrine video where we're showing the light and the shrine being the ending part of the show. But I didn't even notice this. This is the cover picture for this Melbourne Light Show, which is all based around artificial intelligence. So it's got like two portals in there, right?
I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that
I don't
one.
know what that picture is. I think it might be Old Melbourne Jail.
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah.
Mm.
So it is. But that's so the light show that they ended on the shrine was said to be the light to eternity. And I made reference before, that whole ray of light in the book of the shrine, they do talk about how so it's got this kind of Tower of Babel narrative around it, because they talk about that ray of sunlight hitting the building is like God reaching out and touching the building itself. Now, there's so much, even I was talking to you and Cal about this one, but there's so much reference to them talking and referring to the shrine as it is actually alive. They talk about it breathes. And there's another couple of clips where it sounds like it's got a lung and heartbeat and everything. So they really make reference to this thing being alive. So then having this Now or Never light show that they did last year, it was like it's ushering in this new year or whatever's to come from this second seal event this year. So they had the Eternity light beam finished at the shrine, but they had this whole show that, I don't know whether you've got that photo of that robotic creature, which was this whole sway towards this. I've got it on my phone.
Yeah, from the light show.
Yeah, this was one of them. We didn't see this from the first time round, but it's the creepiest thing. But it's obviously a very animated type creature that they're trying to usher in, is what this thing looks to find it. But anyway, I'll search through and find it. But that part of that light show, which we didn't see because it ran a couple of blocks and it ended at the shrine, but they had this whole, the Neversphere. So one of the parklands had a Neversphere, which was this massive dome that came over, all the crowd sitting underneath it, and they played out this cosmological thing on this Neversphere. I thought, this is weird that they're going into this whole dome. Now we've got this eternity light beam being affected and turning humans into technology. This whole conversion. It was a full AI event that ended at the shrine.
Well, yeah, the whole theme of that art show is really transhumanism, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then if you look at the shrine as a birthing spot, or as a woman or a birthing canal, this is why I think it's interesting that they've brought, because I mentioned to you the other day that they've brought they had to bring these female artists down to Melbourne.
Yeah.
After I was listening to Michael Tazarian, he did this presentation on the female Illuminati, and it was all to do with hiding the occult knowledge of fertility. That's where it stems from. And the counteraction of the so-called patriarchy was actually like a rebuttal to the women holding the knowledge of fertility. So it's like this whole dark. It would make sense, right, that they've come to Melbourne.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's the same. And again, so you can see the ritual playing out, because 2020, that fire aid that they did. So we had, obviously, Australia was on fire, but it was mainly the east coast of Victoria that was on fire. And in the last 4 years, it's all been everything happening over in the east. This year, same time, we've got fires burning through Victoria on the west coast. So we can see that it's going to shift, and we know it's going to, Western countries are going to be the target for the next 4 years, predominantly. So it's like this ritual that's playing out again the exact same weekends when Taylor Swift and Blink 182 were all here. So that Blink 182 concert has got the background. It's a Phoenix event. It's got the sun darkening. The sun goes black and the moon turns blood red, while people are running terrified and being attacked by beings, being stabbed by beings.
Yeah.
This is the background of their concert of a song called Violence.
And you shared the one. Oh, actually, I might put it up now. You sent this to me. I think someone put it in the Sky Earth group, didn't they?
Oh yeah, the pink one.
The pink one.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll see
yeah,
if
Jasmine
I'll
Post.
see if I
Yeah.
can play it. Oh, it's not going to play, I don't think. Anyway, what is she saying there?
Post it.
Oh no, I've got it here. Can you see that?
Yep.
Hello? Are you still alive out there? Good. Good. Welcome to the here and now on Beautiful Freaks, Dirty Dirty Underdog. Is this a simulation? Simulation. I knew I'd see you again.
Trust fall.
Someone said count your blessings now. 1, 2, 3, 4.
What the fuck?
It was breaking up a bit. She asks them if they're still alive out there, aren't they? Because there were heaps of people collapsing at the concert because it's really hot or something. And then talk starts going into how it's a simulation and she knew she'd see you again. That's what she's spoken. Yeah. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. But yeah, they've got this obviously this ritual of Pink being here, Blink 182, but then of course Taylor Swift's concert. So she's got that album being released. Tortured Poet Society is her album. It's being released on April 19th. And if you look into anything on April 19, you'll see there's so much history about that being a really dark day. Lots of major events and attacks happen on April 19. So look, why are you promoting it? So you put a specific date for Tortured Soul Society. It's like this.
Mm.
And it's all being announced here in Australia. Same weekend it was 4 years ago.
Yeah. It's I mean, they seem to be really highlighting Australia. What did she what's her tour or album called again? Because she said it was referencing it was the same as the Julian Assange event.
They've both got an album cover names at Trustful.
The Trustful.
Yeah, that's a very common name, but they've both got. So Julian Assange documentary, ousting everything apparently, is Trustful, and Pink's album is Trustful.
Yeah, right. So there's that reference again, and plus Assange is from Melbourne.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. It's mental. But so this all came back to, so that light show, obviously just those photos that we saw, so if we do find them, chuck them in the chat or whatever, or if you can find them. One was that the portal, the shrine portal, like that light being that we didn't see on the first light. It really is, like the whole entrance of it is lit up like it's a portal summoning something. I don't know what they're projecting from it. And then we'll find that picture of this AI creature that they had promoting this event. But then I went back to the shrine board. And what I started reading was how they excavated the site to clear everything to build this site. And they made reference, they planted trees from all around the world that referenced, soldiers that had fallen and sacrificed. So they planted all the trees, one that represented every country that was involved in the wars. The last one that was planted, and this is the only one they made a point of, is the olive tree that was from Palestine. And straight away, how weird is that? And that's the one tree they're making a mention of. And that's it, nothing else under that, just the last tree that was planted, olive tree from Palestine. So I jumped into that, started having a look around, well, what on earth's the correlation here? Why they're making a highlight of it? And that's how I found the whole Marduk narrative. So it's so interesting to me today that Jason's just done a story on the whole Tiamat Marduk, because it's the creation story. This is where the book of Genesis has copied the Enuma Elish, the ancient Babylon narrative of how this whole creation started. And the shrine screams of the creation story. So it's got exactly 6,000 tons of granite. 6,000 people worked on it. It took 6 years to build, but it took 7 overall, so 1 day of rest. So it's just riddled with this creation stuff. And then it really led back to this whole Marduk narrative, who destroyed Tiamat, the chaotic water dragon, which is the phoenix. So it's showing us a whole reset story.
Yeah. Fuck, man. It's like, I need to watch the rest of that, Jason. So you watched the whole thing this week?
Yeah.
I'm very pleased that the last thing I say as PM is here. Habakkuk 3:17. Even if the fig tree does not blossom, and there is no fruit on the vines, if the yield of the olive oil fails, and if the fields produce no food, Even if the flock disappears from the fold and there are no cattle in the stalls, yet I will triumph for the Lord.
Yeah, because
But a lot of it,
no, go.
yeah. No, as I say, a lot of it's well, I've already read about it, having looked into this whole Marduk narrative and what that's all about. So you've got the Jewish calendar still sits on the ancient Babylonian calendar. So our Easter, which is coming up, which is why I think they're doing this, why it's all ramping up now, is because Easter is the Akitu festival, which is a celebration of Marduk, destroying the chaotic waters of Tiamat. And that's what our Easter is. That's what they're celebrating. And Marduk basically is Nimrod. So it's this whole Baal worship. It's exactly what it is. Yet they've flipped this narrative.
It's weird because I always my knowledge of Marduk before all this stuff was all like based off like Wallace Thornhill. I don't know if you hear he did like yeah. Well, yeah, they basically they call it like a cosmic war, and that this was there was there was a war in the heavens, and it was destroyed, but it was same. He calls it like a water planetoid. But I heard like Jason speaking that today about the waters above, which it makes it interesting too that they removed the mirror or the water pool from the shrine as well.
Yeah, it reflected as above, so below.
Yeah,
and it was called a reflection pool.
yeah,
And they got rid of it to put in the eternal flame. And again, they said they had to because the eternal flame, they needed somewhere for it to go. It's nowhere near where the pool was. It's right off to the side. It would have had no impact whatsoever. But they had to get rid of the water to put the fire in. So yeah, it's definitely
but isn't that the Marduk Tiamat thing anyway? Because isn't Tiamat fire as well?
yeah, probably. I've only seen it being the chaotic waters, but she's also the water dragon. She was the phoenix, so that will have association with fire.
Yeah, right. Fuck, man.
Well, that's what I think. I think they will definitely, whether it be around the time of the French Olympics, that this building, because again, like remember I don't know if it was 2020 or 2021 when they had the attack at the shrine site where the cops were shooting. So I think again there'll be something that will happen at this building, whether it's got something to do with the timing of the French Olympics overseas. It's got something to do with this narrative because they keep talking about. Oh, that's right. I started looking into. I mean, I don't know much about ley lines, but I mean, I knew just obviously this thing is on some sacred site. We know that. I mean, it states it's a sacred site. It's called the sanctuary is called the Holy of Holies, which is this whole, comes back to the Ark of the Covenant type narrative. But it talks about how it's positioned on the spine of Melbourne.
Oh, yeah.
He just,
Hang on, yeah,
so many talk about this.
You just broke up for a sec. You just broke up. Do you want can you just say that again about the spine? That was really interesting.
Yeah. So I think the book mentions it too, but there's a lot of articles that talk about this specific axis that it's on in Melbourne. It runs direct north-south, but they call it the spine of Melbourne. Like again, here's this reference to it actually being alive. And they really do talk about it. Like they talk about the stone does breathe. So it's whatever they're using this energy through the stone and water and fire and everything else they use, they are bringing this building alive somehow, whether it's however they're trying to connect to this. But yeah, it's very specific on this north-south. So when you were talking about, you can see a shift in the hemispheres. I'm like, because if this one is pointing directly north and south, and I don't know about what the west and east would have to do with any of it, but they constantly talk about this keen north direction. And then, of course, we can talk about, well, what just discovered by default with that, because with this axis in the spine of Melbourne, they talk about how it then is capped and ended by the Swanston Square. It's like, I guarantee there'll be a black cube, or Swanston Square itself will be a black cube. Of course, there's a massive black cube building. At the top of that building is a face staring right at the spine, straight down the spine to the shrine. And they said the best place to view this face, which we've been here and couldn't see it, is from the front entrance of the shrine.
Yeah, we didn't see it, did we?
Not at all. I don't even think most people would even know it's there. You probably see it now once you know that that's what this building's been cut into. But it's the last land activist in Australia. So he was an Aboriginal. They had a massive the Corranburg station in Hillsville was a really successful Indigenous station. So they had schools, shops, they were completely independent. It was huge. And they, again, I'm tipping the timing of the Little Hats taking over Australia being the late 1800s. They were trying to take this land back so that they couldn't have this control and independence, and of course them taking over Australia. And they need all these land masses back. So this one guy that was the prominent activist against them doing that was William Barrack, or Barrack, however you pronounce his surname. And that's the face they've now carved, staring over the shrine, which is more presumed acquired land of a sacred Aboriginal burial ground. And now you've got this face looking over it. I mean, that's not exactly a respectable thing, is it? Because they ended up, I don't know whether they actually killed this guy or whether he just died in 1890. But then after that, they've basically taken over everything. Australia was federated in 1901. The army was established.
He was the man or the representative standing in the way of them acquiring this, very important site and the building that was on it. So it's what do you think? What's the purpose of them putting the face? Is it just mockery or what?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And I think that's because they talk about how when the shrine was planned, they say how it was to usher in a new generation. What's that? Again, what have we got to do with the War Memorial if we're ushering in a new generation? For what?
Yeah.
So you've gotten rid of the Indigenous, you've gotten presumably the last largest station that they had no government control at all, and they were very successful, so they had to destroy that. And then the shrine came along. So not long after that had happened, this is when they had the National Army put together, and then they started planning all the Australians to go into all these wars. So obviously, whatever gold from that was taking artifacts and things from all around the world. But then the shrine was planned post, obviously, or middle of World War One. And that, it's stated to usher in the new generation, the new era.
Yeah. It's hard to know when that building was actually put there, right? Do you know what? I just thought about the Paris thing too, just being significant this year. Because I know like these old presentations I used to watch David Icke, and he spoke a lot about how it all comes out of Babylon, and like Rome is just like everyone, the Catholic Church they just reacquired everything from Babylon. But he speaks specifically about Paris, even that Paris was controlled by the Semiramis cult, which again is like female fertility. And that's so because you were speaking about Nimrod yesterday.
Yeah, interesting.
But that's the other one I wanted to bring up was the Apollo. Cause I was looking at how Apollo, because this is what I kind of think, that they're like bringing Apollo from the north back down. And because there was 17 Apollo missions, which is significant, because they say like even the 17th book of the Bible is like the book of Esther, and it's all about flipping and reversing everything. And then that goes into Osiris, which is like born and died on the 17th, which is basically like Apollo anyway. Yeah. So that's kind of why I thought that there's this energetic transfer from the north to the south. And they've always spoken that the southern hemisphere will be the safest in a coming reset. And so that even ties into Antarctica and that kind of stuff. So it just looks like they're transferring that energy specifically, because like with Taylor Swift, that the peak of her fame was highlighted at the Super Bowl, right? That was when she hit absolute stardom of like just next level. And then the moment she goes from the Super Bowl, so Vegas, then comes down to Melbourne straight away.
But despite being on the other side of the world, you've got the very best seat in the house. And as you can see, this set behind me, it's the very same one that Fox Sports in the US used for their coverage of the Super Bowl. You see what's come to life here over the last couple of days, and obviously there's been so much work gone into it. What are your thoughts?
all I can think of is Project Apollo. You know, all those in the deep dark moments of COVID when Peter and Andrew said, Project Apollo, we're going. You know?
And then you have the Apollo reference with the NRL, and they're in Vegas and they're passing that back down. I don't know. You can read into these things, but look, there's just too many of them.
There's way too many for it just to be all coincidental. Because even was it the torch thing, the torch for the French Olympics? That's a female face on it. You think, why on earth is that there? Because it's very distinctive lips and it's a hairline. It's a female torch.
Yeah. Actually, I might share this is the one Rachel had too. This was from the Taylor Swift concert. Now, obviously, Rachel's been doing all this discovery and stuff around these portals, right? So she puts this up, and there was another one, and you got like the Black Priestesses here too. See the three people on stage?
Yeah.
And they're highlighting this portal. There was another one, I think, from the Sydney show where it was red. But then even Melbourne itself, sorry, the MCG, right? Because you spoke about them being portals, and it just like with the Taylor Swift thing, it just as soon as I saw it, like I was at this wedding 2 weeks ago, and no one was on the dance floor. You know when it's like early in the night, and there's only like 4 or 5 up there early, and then a Taylor Swift song come on, and it was just like,
wow.
I'm like, something weird going on here. And then I caught up with another mate, and he took his daughter there, and he's like, yeah, I'm a fan now. But it reeks of Beatlemania to me. So, we know like Beatles were like created by Tavistock, but this what I found interesting was the reason they say that they created the Beatles, Tavistock, was because of a mass trauma that occurred in society. So subconsciously, people knew there was a coup that took place with JFK. That was the real takeover to what we see now with that assassination, and that's all got to do with like the assassination of the king and the Sun King as well. That they called it the primal scream when these girls started like screaming at the Beatles concert. And then I was just looking at all these videos on TikTok, and it's the exact same reaction, like these girls convulsing and letting out so much emotion at being at the Taylor Swift concerts. So if you think of the last 4 years, what's happened, people got like PTSD subconsciously from what's occurred. And so I almost look at that as a ritual too, not just being Melbourne, but that they're having to release this energy of what the people have been through over the last 4 years. So it's like, because people say it's just a distraction, Taylor Swift, and I'm like, it's much bigger than a distraction. These are like, these are nods to each other. This is the occult speaking to each other, right? It's not just
well, even now, what's potentially to come this year with all these class actions that are happening in Australia, that they're winning. So with all these mandates and things, so that's just happened in South Australia and now just Queensland.
Well, aren't they the first of their type in the world?
I think so.
So isn't that significant too? For like Australia, where nothing gets done here, like we seem to be the most controlled, especially through the court system. But somehow that's happened. In Australia. Yeah. So like, do you think it's do you think like, because when they had the fires here in 2020 and then COVID opened up the first seal of Apollo, do you think like maybe they're closing the first seal here too before what can happen?
Even a video Jason did last week, I think it was the last week or two, he made mention that the whole point of the second seal is obviously an unveiling, but the second one is to bring peace from the earth, to make very chaotic. And he said, and one of those ways that they will do it is turn around and say, yeah, all those mandates were illegal. This is it. He's talking about the US. He doesn't even know about Australia. But he said they'll turn around and say, but it was your choice. So imagine people that are going to go, they're going to lose their mind because they weren't technically it was true. You weren't forced to do it, but in a sense you were, or you thought you were. So that's well, he's certain that they'll just turn around and say, yeah, we weren't supposed to do any of that. And it's bad. All those conspiracy stories are true, but it was your choice. So this is where he thinks that will be your global, you'll probably have something come out of the French Olympics, no doubt. As you know, that's, and all those sleeper cells and things like that that could be activated everywhere. But he said this is another one on a lower level. Just think of all the individuals that didn't want to do it, did it anyway, because they thought they had to. Like just the repercussions of them finding out they didn't have to do it, and all those stories are actually true.
So people that don't know, like when we talk first and second seal, do you want to explain that briefly?
Well, again, yeah, so it comes back to it's all the reset stories, isn't it? So like everything we're just saying with the 7 days and the 6, so you've got your 6 seal events and the 7th is the tribulation. So again, coming back to the book of Genesis, which is, again, creation stories. But the seal events, so occur every 4 years. They're to usher in, well, they're an unveiling, aren't they? They're an unveiling, but it creates chaos out of this unveiling to the final event being the 6th seal, which will be the return of the Phoenix. So it's a global cataclysm. It tends to happen all over the world, but it doesn't mean every part of the world. So it's just something that impacts most countries. Jason says this time round, Asia is going to be the worst fared, and Australia is ideally the best faring. And we mentioned this the other day too. They talk about how Australia is actually huge. And in the last 6 months, I have noticed how mainstream media keeps making reference to all of our submerged land. And they only even acknowledge Zealandia, I think 2016. And you can clearly see Zealandia between New Zealand and Australia. That landmass isn't even that far below the water. But so there's a theory this will all come back. So by 2040, Australia will almost triple in size, which is probably why all the attention is here. Because they know this is going to be the place to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've heard that for years that's they're buying up, like the elites and stuff are all buying up land in Australia. Have you seen the Mandela effect? How they reckon New Zealand shifted south? Because I definitely remember it being high.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like if people haven't seen his breakdown of the first seal of the apocalypse, it's like it's undeniable. Yeah. As far as the white coats and the physician and the like the Hippocratic oath is like that. The physicians take the oath to Apollo, and hip means horse, and it's it's the first horseman, and the arrow is actually it's poison, and it's all there. Which like I mean I did that video a while ago on unleashing these sleeper cells, and it depends. I mean, how much do you think that, like, how big is that going to play out? But it very much, like, they've completely set the scene for it. I don't know if Paris is the beginning of the opening of the second seal, but you can see that in news stories already.
Yeah. Well, and Jason,
actually, just this week in America, there's been a couple of people. They've highlighted a few people that have been killed by these immigrants that have come over.
Yeah. Right? Yes. Yeah. So they're building that narrative, but they've been building the narrative about the stabbings since, I think, 2021. So Melbourne was just constant stabbings. I remember Tatari Australia and Kelly and Campbell did a video about what's going on with all these stabbings everywhere, in Melbourne in particular. And the second seal is meant to be, the weapon is meant to be a machete or a small knife of some description.
Well, doesn't it? He calls it a machete. The word comes from machete, doesn't it? He said it's a weapon of assassination, not a weapon of war.
Assassins, yeah, yeah, because it's close up.
But what do you think of it? Have you seen this news story this week where the head of ASIO has come out and said that a former politician has he's some foreign country that he's been bribed by or on it. So because everyone would think, oh, well, that's China. And I think, no, the way they're going to play it is they're going to say it's Iran. They're going to say it's Iran. And then when these stabbings or stuff like that starts breaking out, that it will tie to like this politician that they've been allowing immigration to come in, to allow sleeper cells to come in. And it's been funded and peddled through Iran, because Iran's coming very much into the news now. And I think that's who they're going to pin on all this kind of stuff because they want that conflict in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Fuck me.
It's crazy. There's stuff, it's just all over the place, but yeah, you got to wonder what they're building. I mean, obviously they've had so much attention on this shrine building now for a couple of years. They've had all these events going on at that particular location. So I said, when someone else made a comment about the shrine, I said, I'm sure it's going to come front and center again this year with some sort of event. And again, if some sort of wars break out, even if there is the Muslim-Islam war, the shrine, that's what the whole point of it was, but it's a safety place. It was meant to be for sovereignty and everything. So if anyone sees things happening overseas in a war type scenario, it's the place where you could see something would happen in Melbourne.
And that's actually a flip or a reversal too, because we were fighting the Ottomans in World War One. We were fighting the Muslims, and then now that can be unleashed on, and then they unleashed the Muslim terrorist onto the West.
Yeah. Well, there's so much. The shrine itself has so much reference to the Ottoman Empire and Babylon. It's the whole thing about it, like its construction, everything screams of ancient Babylon and Egypt. So that's why I said they actually it's like they've recreated it here in Melbourne. So whatever that site in particular is, because there's another thing in the book, and again, there's no reference. They make these completely random comments. But when it was first built, they wanted to light it up bright red and orange. No reason why. They didn't say why, but they wanted it so when bright red and orange, they wanted to light it up at night, so that when ships were coming in to the ports, they would see this building from the water. So again, you've got this reference to the water and the ships coming in and docking. They want to be able to see this bright red building. There's no comment about this. The only reason they didn't do it, and the comment was because it could result in the murder of the moon. What?
Say that again.
So they wanted to do that light show. So light it up bright red and orange. So when the ships are docking in, when passengers are coming into the docks, they can see this blood red building. But the only reason that someone else fought against it, so no, we don't want that to happen. It'll end up resulting in the murder of the moon. Moving right along, then it just moves on. There's no, what on earth?
Oh, that's meant because okay, you've got that's all the birthing again too, because the ship's coming into dock. The shrine itself is a freaking womb, as far as I'm concerned. And then to say the murder of the moon, because that goes back to Babylon again too, because that's Semiramis is the moon, she's the moon goddess, and that actually ties to Paris, because that's what some people say that the Statue of Liberty is Semiramis as well, and that was given by the French Freemasons to America, but they say it's also Isis. Well, it's the same thing, right? And it's holding the penis ripped upside down.
Yeah,
that's fucking wild. The murder of the moon. Does he say it in the book?
Yeah, and then it just moves on.
This book, I mean, I haven't read I need to get this book. This book is basically, the whole thing looks like it was just written for occult understandings for very specific few, and some reason you've picked it up.
And that's the book. If you want to you got to get it.
It's a piss take. It
is.
No one.
I'm so glad I did get it, but I only got it because I thought, because it doesn't find much about the construction. So maybe there'll be photos and some information about the actual building of the shrine. It's just got everything else in it. It's insane. The stuff that's in here is crazy. And yes, it's definitely a cult book. And you can only get it from there. So it's not like you can say, someone's reprinted it and changed it, and you can't buy it online. It's only available at the shrine itself.
I would love to go back to the shrine with you, and you just come in with your little footnotes in the book, little tabs, and go, can you please explain? They're like, none of this is common knowledge, even to the the people that work in the shrine.
No, they have no idea. They have no idea. And that's why I think, so again, your creation story with the whole Marduk and Tiamat, it's because the shrine has been built as a ziggurat. Well, the Temple of Marduk was a ziggurat.
Yeah.
And a lot of references that they've put onto the shrine have got a similarity from Temple of Marduk. And it's just, so it's this full creation story, but of course, Marduk being Babylon. I remember, I think it's the first video. I said, I feel like they're recreating Babylon in Melbourne. And that's what that shrine was to represent. That's their new, not necessarily maybe not their temple, but again, it's got this similarity to Solomon's temple was built in seven years. Shrine, I claim, was built in 7 years. So it's just, I keep tying it back to this real creation story, which is why I think over the next, between now and 2040, all these seal events is going to tie this building in completely, because I think that's what they built it for.
Yeah. It's weird because it's kind of like an inversion, because you say it's built on a burial site. So they've tried to invert and represent a birthing site on what is a burial site.
Yeah. But then they have it associated, it's all about war. So it's all about death again.
Well, you know the Canberra War Memorial too, the National War Memorial in Canberra. Have you ever seen the pictures of that?
Not a lot of them, no.
That one is just bizarre because it's the full dome, and then you enter in, so it's like the canal of the woman again, and then it's got a big water in the middle. So that's like a big birthing site too. But supposedly that is a birthing site. That is an Aboriginal birthing site that it's built on.
It surprised me. Yeah.
And again, it's got the eternal flame.
Yeah. Well, again, this book, there's a journalist that comments on this book when the shrine was built, and the comment is he particularly likes the dome ceiling. There is no dome ceiling. What a stupid thing! Like this is only written in like 2010.
So what's he saying there? If it's
just that was his favourite attribute of the building, was the dome ceiling. Like there is no dome ceiling that we can see or that we know of. But it's only nearly printed, so it's not like you can tell someone don't know what they were talking about.
So that's saying that the ceiling was possibly changed.
Possibly, or there's something else. There's another ceiling that we don't know about.
Well, they always, in symbology, the dome buildings are meant to be women, and I'd suggest the ziggurat or the pyramid structure is probably more masculine.
Yeah.
Particularly when it's all in reference to the light, the ascending light. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember thinking the other day, when they did that ray of light, I'm sure it was 144 pages. So you've got that reference to the 144,000 type thing there. I'm sure it was 144 pages of maths they had to do to get that angle and everything to work. And like it just constantly got these little references. And of course, the Giza pyramid was covered with, originally had the 144,000 limestone casing blocks, which have been removed, but that's what it had on top of it.
Yeah. It's almost like a microcosm. I mean, look, there's a lot of these buildings all around the world, right? So why Melbourne? Why is this one so significant, or is it for this time now?
I think it's for this time in particular. They built it so it was all planned. It came to Australia in particularly like late 1800s, and then you had the 1902, the last Phoenix cataclysm. Where and Jason's got that great video, I think you said you watched that one too, on the 1902, because that's the whole reset, and it covers a lot of all the things that happened in Australia. And every state was hit with all this red mud and everything. So that's another good one to watch if you're going to check out the seal events. Is the 1902 video. It's only about 2 weeks ago, I think. But it does reference a lot of what happened in Australia. So they knew where to go and where to stay away from while this event happened. And then as soon as 1902 passed, it was on, and they just planned everything from there, knowing that coming the next event, Australia fares very well.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, you just broke up for a bit. Yeah, I did Australian history in year 12. I mean, I was told that John Batman came up from Van Diemen's Land and he saw the beautiful kangaroo grass and he thought this is a great place to settle. That's what I was told.
Oh, it's bizarre, isn't it?
Oh, man. All right. Well, so where else do we want to
go? There's probably not a lot at the moment, but I think so we've got the vernal equinox coming up. Right? That's the 20th or 21st.
Mm-hmm.
Did COVID start? Did all one of the big announcements in Australia? Someone made mention of this. I saw a comment about March 20 in 2020.
It
I don't
was
know whether
about, I can't remember the exact date. It was definitely March. I think it happened after a big astrological conjunction. I think it was, fuck, I've got to try and remember. Anyway, it was to do with Pluto. But yeah, because I remember this is actually interesting. This kind of tells me there's 4 year cycle because I'm going to see live um, in Melbourne. And I booked tickets to see them in 2020 in Yarrawonga, and it was the week of the first lockdown. So I never went. So they've come like full year circle to come back to Melbourne almost like to the day. So I can't remember what it was, but yeah, obviously, but I know within the dark occult calendar from the Northern Hemisphere spring equinox until Beltane Sabbath, May the 1st. That's the 40 days of
yeah,
sacrifice, and that's when you said the April 19th. Because I think the Oklahoma City bombing was around there.
yeah,
Waco
Waco, yeah. There's
and the
heaps of stuff.
fucking Port Arthur massacre. They're all around that kind of date. If you look, yeah, just check anywhere from March to May the 1st. And then May the 1st is a big one. That's like the Iraq invasion. I think Libya as well. They usually do a lot on that end date. So look, it's significant every year. So, but we've also got I think there's 2 eclipses in March as well. So eclipse season starts in March.
Yeah. Well,
So
that and that all ties into again the Easter cycle. So this the Kittu festival that the Jewish calendar still acknowledges. That's what they work on, and everybody else gets Easter, which is
yeah,
this whole Marduk festival
yeah.
to their sun god.
But that's what I think like Taylor Swift and Pink and all these are these this is they're showing that the dark female Illuminati coming down here because if you want to do a rebirth ritual and if you're switching hemispheres, then you bring
Yeah,
the occult witches down to
yeah.
open up these portals, right? To
Yeah,
change the energy.
yeah, yep.
So you're gonna go to see Taylor Swift or what?
Oh, for sure. Thanks. Seen
You,
enough of it.
you know the difference with like Tavistock and the Beatles was like the Beatles were actually pretty good. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, they were a created band and all that, but like they were fucking same as all the Laurel Canyon bands from the 60s, like the Doors and Fleetwood Mac and the Eagles, and they all came out of CIA Laurel Canyon, but they were good.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Like what we've got now.
Yeah, like I mean, you know, society's coming to a tipping point when you look at art and culture, and yeah, they're in decline. I do like a couple of her songs, like a couple are okay, but
She's just nuts. Well, it's a guy, isn't it? Very tall for a.
I don't
Yeah, that's the latest narrative on her.
I saw one where they had that Travis Kelce who's supposedly dating her, and they showed all these exes, and they all got like big titties and big ass and stuff, and then
Then
like,
you got this one. The
yeah, he
shift.
just like changed his whole taste in women with with Taylor. Bizarre. So the other one, so like Blink 182's come over here. Now I remember because I said this to you, they were in the WikiLeaks pedestre emails.
Oh,
Because
that's right. Yeah, you mentioned that.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I was following like some of the stuff Tom DeLonge was doing this like 10 years ago. And I can't remember, he had some group called Reach for the Stars or something like that. But he's supposedly come in contact with all these, um, you know, black operatives, people that are working on secret space program or UFOs and all this kind of shit, right? And he'd done these huge lectures and it was going to be this big thing and they were going to bring in hovercrafts and flying vehicles and all this kind of shit. This was, and then it came out he was being funded by John Podesta, and John Podesta is heavily tied to like the UFO disclosure movement. And then there was even a WikiLeaks email between him and Clinton saying like, when's it time to play the alien card? So It's just weird that like Blink 182 is here as well too, because that tells me if Tom DeLonge was having interactions with John Podesta, that yeah, he's a musician, but his cover is a musician, right?
Yeah.
And what they, I was saying to you too, is what they do for a lot of these concerts. And if you look at the scale of Taylor Swift concerts, they're actually covered for Black Ops. So if
Yeah.
Taylor Swift coming to Melbourne, I mean, you're talking hundreds of jetliners to bring all this kind of stuff over. And you know, Kathy O'Brien spoke years ago how the country music scene was used for drug and child trafficking and lots of weapons trafficking, because they would have so much um, what's the word? Yeah, that they have so much different cargo and stuff that they have to ship
Yeah.
in, but they don't go looking through it all. So if you've got all these huge concerts going on in Australia, is it telling us that they're actually prepping for
Yeah.
some future Black Op event in Australia, right? And that
Yeah.
these concerts are being used somewhat as a cover to move um, things in and out.
Yeah. Well, and even just that whole Project Apollo they did the other day, this whole revisiting the moon. They've gone back to the moon, just what,
Oh,
50 years?
it was like on the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
explain that. This was fucking
Well, I don't even,
crazy.
it's so weird. Like, you try and go and find a video of it now because it was so ridiculous. And it kept, the feed kept dropping out, back 50 years ago, you could call them apparently. And now you can't because it was so bad. And I could see some of the comments live
Mm.
about, which movie sets this one in and Arizona looks great, all that sort of stuff. But you can't find the videos of it now. But 50 years to the day, you've just announced Project Apollo, and then you've had this moon mission
Yeah,
going back to the whole Apollo thing, bringing the moon back into it.
mm. Yeah,
There's
so
so much talk about the moon now. Like,
yeah, but again, because it's like if you're talking the moon, then the moon is the dark feminine. It's Semiramis again, which is represented by these people like Taylor Swift. And
yeah,
then it was almost to the day that they redone. They've supposedly gone back to the moon.
yeah,
That they announced they call Project Apollo for the NRL being
yeah.
in Vegas almost to the day. It might have even
Yeah,
been.
and the guy that was doing that interview, a couple of times he made mention how it's important because the NRL is all about the future and moving forward and growing. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
how? How is the NRL all about the future if obviously you're not talking about something else? I think sport evolves that much.
I'd like to know where this. I'd like to look at the layout of where this Vegas stadium is, because they've actually Vegas has become. They're trying to make Vegas the new sporting. Vegas and Riyadh in Saudi
Okay.
Arabia weirdly are like become like the sporting meccas now, because they've had the Formula One in Vegas. They've got all these fights there, the UFC, and then they've had the Super Bowl in Vegas. So, like, do you remember with the Vegas shooting and stuff too, where it was all done around the what's the pyramid building in Vegas? It was all the
Oh,
it was
yeah.
like the layout of Egypt, because they had the casino that's like the Sphinx and the pyramid and that. So it'd be interesting to see where the
Well,
stadium.
so even just you saying that video this morning that Jason did on Marduk and Tiamat, he mentioned how in ancient times the elite, so to speak, knew that the demons resided in the deserts.
Mm.
So if you're putting out, you've got all your Saudi Arabia, you've got obviously Vegas, massive desert. So they're building all these areas and putting all this attention on these areas that they knew were in ancient Babylon and Sumerian, and they believed the demons resided in the desert.
Really, I hadn't heard that
Yeah,
word. Well,
yeah, no, it was on his
that
video today.
that makes me think of because I went out to Devil's Marbles which is it's like halfway between Tennant Creek and Alice Springs. And yeah, like the originals say, like, you shouldn't be out there at night, because that's
Right.
supposedly that's where there's most UFO activity in Australia. Have you seen Devil's Marbles before?
No, I don't think so.
But that was wasn't he saying that in reference to Enoch and that too, that Zion was the mountain within the desert.
Yes, yeah. But then if you said that, because then what's the desert's the furthest away from the water.
Mm.
So even the movie The Signs, and they had that whole alien concept, and the guy Night Shyamalan says, "I don't know what it is, but I think they're afraid of water. They don't seem to go where the water is."
Oh,
Yeah, so he was planning to go far
fuck!
east
I never.
because
I'll have to watch
he
that.
thought the creatures that were these alien creatures coming to attack humanity didn't seem to like water. They stayed far away from it, and when water was put around them, they that's how they killed it in the end, didn't they? They killed him with the water.
I can't remember.
Because the girl had the glasses of water all around her and saying it's contaminated, the water's contaminated. But at the end, how they destroyed the being was they splashed water on it. So if he's now saying the demons reside in the desert, well, that's as far away from water as you can get.
Mm. Fuck, it's made me it made me think of like Adjustment Bureau too, because that's what he said. He goes out. He said they go out over the water that they can.
Yeah.
Because they can't. They said they can't intercept the water.
Interesting, isn't it? Comes back to the creation story again. Even if like the representation of the water being destroyed, the chaotic waters, is this dragon head. It's the phoenix. But then the phoenix is meant to be a good thing for humanity. It's meant to be a bad thing for, that's why that low vibrational demonic people. That's what it targets.
Mm.
So if Marduk was destroying this chaotic feminine of the waters, which was the dragon, ultimately that dragon protects the people. That's why the elite have to create this world of fear all the time, so that the average person's on that low vibration. So when something does happen, it's targeting those people and leaves them alone, because they can't be bright and positive, and they're just dark energy people. Obviously, the elite, that's what they focus on.
Yeah.
So coming back to that story again, it's just the same loop.
That's what.
It's the same loop. So it's just this whole reset story.
Yeah.
Which, if you follow that whole concept of the simulation, whether people are into that or you're not, whatever, it's the loop until you break out of it, until you get out of the system.
Well, isn't this the whole point? And I think Jason speaks about this too, that if you look at Revelation and all the seal events, right, too, it's not because we're living out Bible prophecy because the Messiah is coming and all that too. It's there for people that can spot the code of the repeating cycle, right? And ultimately that we can break the cycle.
Yeah. Well, they tell us history repeats itself. They tell us that. So it's funny, they tell us this stuff and we just don't think, oh yeah, history repeats.
It literally repeats.
It literally repeats forever. It will always be cyclical. It'll always do the same thing with some variances, but it will predominantly be the same.
I mean, and that's why I think Paris is significant again too, just because I know there's the 100-year cycle as well too, and the 50 Jubilees is either mirrored or flipped as well too. Now I know it's not exactly the same as when was Munich Olympics?
73?
72? I think it was 72. Might be 74. I think it was 72. Yeah. But yeah, obviously, so there was that event there where the Jews were, or Israelis were attacked by a terrorist group on that bridge. So it's near 50 years to the day. So if that was a reversal, right, it would be, it could be that an Islamic country or whatever is attacked, that could set off sleeper cells to retaliate, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think there's going to be a Brisbane whatever Olympics. What's that?
No. What's that, 2032? I don't think so.
I keep asking Dad. I go, Dad, they said they're not going to do it at the Gabba anymore. He goes, there's no 2032 Olympics. It's not happening.
Yeah, well, they're already talking. Because they can't have the infrastructure. They've got companies to build anything anymore. They deliberately collapsed all of Australia's, completely collapsed Australia's construction industry. So there's no one around to build it.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
I don't think so. Not for now. I think
we'll have to do another one if anything else comes up.
Yeah, well, you want to wait and see what happens after March 20 and potentially even after Easter.
Mate, I'm just going to be waiting when there's going to be some significant event in Melbourne and the Shrine be like, Nikki fucking told you so, Nikki.
Yeah, don't be around. I wouldn't hang around there too much this year, around the middle of the year.
Although, I mean, I even said like when they did that shoot up at the Shrine, I'm like, this is completely orchestrated. That it was at that had to be ritual, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't. They couldn't have shot him up anywhere else. They had to do it there. They were using that terror and anger and stuff to feed into that portal. I'm sure.
Actually, but you did the video, or you were doing that little chat with Glenn in Thailand, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, Glenn. We'll have to get you and Glenn on a video.
Yeah, because he showed a video or a picture of the archway
Mm.
just in the gardens. He said it's just in the gardens of the shrine. It's just there. There's no talk about it, but it's very ancient looking, like the style they've done everything. And
Yeah,
as soon as I saw that, I thought it looks like the Gate of Ishtar.
yeah, you said that.
The underworld, yeah, the underworld. So that was the entrance into the gardens where the shrine is. And then, of course, we know from people's comments, I think on the last one, where they were talking about how it's got that giant bell underground. And there's people paid to come in and ring this bell underground. What on earth is it doing under there?
And again, Ishtar, fertility, the shrine being a womb, coming up
Yeah.
to Easter, which is Istra.
Yeah.
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 Glenn he didn't know anything about. He hadn't heard about the bell underground actually.
Yeah. Well, that's only because someone who's obviously been under there said they worked or knew someone that worked there or something and mentioned that bell.
So what about that other bell that Glenn showed me? Did we look at that? I can't remember.
I haven't looked at it.
What did it say? Fuck, I'm trying to think what it said.
Oh, it did have something strange on it.
Oh, something about eyes, those with eyes to see or those that can't see
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, with eyes to see. Something about is it 4?
I can't remember now. Something to do with eyes. It was something trippy like that. Yeah, that literally makes no reference to anything. Makes no sense at all.
Yeah, it's just an engraved comment on the bell, or yeah, in the gardens, isn't it? It's sitting in the gardens,
Yeah, yeah.
in a tower or something on its own.
Glenn knew about that Masonic dude too. That's got his whole burial site as like a temple, like an Egyptian temple in Melbourne
Oh,
too.
right.
Remember that guy? What was his
Yeah.
name? All right. Well, I guess anyone that's coming to Mullaney can ask Nikki some questions.
Yeah.
I have to.
Trying to.
I have to go now. I had bloody. I went on Campbell's live yesterday. He's like, "You coming to Mullaney?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm."
Ah, good,
Yes. All right.
that'd be good.
Is
All
there
right.
is there anything else you want to share or?
I think we've covered what we think, what we've noticed in the last couple of months, and come to, and I think the next few months, whatever's going to play out, we'll keep a watch. But it's certainly there's a lot going on. So in the next 6 months, I think a lot is going to be coming out and happening around the world, around everywhere. But I think Australia's again, we seem to be centerpiece for the last few years.
Yeah, Australia and Melbourne in particular.
Melbourne in particular.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Hey there, mate.
All right. See you soon.
See ya.